In any event, I'm just ecstatic to be here. I've been paying attention very intently from afar in terms of all of the work we've been doing in Southern California. And I want to tell you, what you all have put together here is quite phenomenal. It is quite phenomenal. Please give the STEM Funders Network and Ron and Gerald here, please give them all a round of applause. We have a real challenge in front of us, and what I want to do here is kind of highlight to you what we're up against, and talk to you a little bit about your importance in this future. Okay? Before I do that, let me tell you a little bit about myself so you understand who you're talking to and why I'm standing here in front of you today. This is where I grew up, New York City, 130th Street and Broadway, right in the heart of Harlem. And this area here, when I grew up, looked pretty much like it does now. On the other side of the street, doesn't. That whole side, Columbia University has moved from 116th Street all the way up into Harlem now. And right across the street from this projects where I grew up is their nanotechnology research center. This is good to show you how much these things have changed. I went to PS 129, which is still there. And right on the grounds of City College is where this elementary school sits. And then back and forth in New York and North Carolina, I went to high school in two places, and so I spent a lot of time there. And those early years were both difficult and gratifying. I don't know how to put the two together, but we were really poor. I mean, we were what we call po. You couldn't even afford the OR. But here's the thing. We never realized we were poor. You just never, and I guess nobody told us. And it wasn't until I moved to North Carolina, and I would go there during the summers, that I realized, yeah, we're a little bit different. This here is where I decided I was going to be an engineer. This is a small church that we actually, I helped build back when I was 15 years old. And I would go down to North Carolina for the summers, and you know how hot, I don't have to tell you, it's Tampa hot in North Carolina in the summer. So those of you from Florida know exactly what I'm talking about. And this building, there were some guys working, some brick masons, putting the brick foundations, and me and my cousins were walking by, and I was a city boy. These were what we used to call country boys. They were just big guys. And we walked by, and they called us over, and they say, "You guys want a job?" And they actually didn't say that. They say, "You boys want a job?" We were like, "Yes." And so they paid us minimum wage to basically haul bricks and mix cement and haul cement for that summer. If you haven't done any work like that, I'm going to tell you, it's literally backbreaking work. And there used to be on this lot, there was a trailer on the lot. And about 2 or 3 times a day in the middle of the North Carolina heat, a guy would come out of that trailer. He had a little hard hat on, and he'd come down, and he'd shake hands with everybody, all the brick masons. He'd talk to them for a little bit, and then he'd go back in the trailer. And the trailer was so nice and air-conditioned that when he opened the door, you could feel the coolness as you were mixing the cement. So I asked one of the brick masons, I said, "Who is that guy?" He said, "He's the engineer." He said, "He's the engineer." I said, "Really?" I said, so we're out here. He's in there. He said, yeah, he comes out every now and then, makes sure we're doing things according to the plans. He designed the building. He's the engineer. I was like, okay. And he's in the air conditioning. We're out here. Okay, I know what I want to be. That's my family. I got 2 sons going through the school system right now, one in public, one in private, an 11th grader and a 9th grader. And so this problem to me is real personal. It's not one that I'm willing to take too lightly, because not only, in my neighborhood in New York City, I was not the smartest. I was not the smartest kid of all my friends. But when I went to NC State University, and I wound up going back to my neighborhood, my old neighborhood in New York City when I grew up, only 2 kids made it out of that neighborhood. And what do I mean when I say made it out? Wasn't dead, was not in jail, or not on drugs. Only 2. I was not the smartest one. And I'm talking about out of 20, 30 kids that all grew up together in that neighborhood, only 2 made it out. Me and a very close friend of mine who lives in Japan right now. And so I kind of know what these 2 are dealing with, and that's my driver. And so I'm going to start off things with this number, 70%. And so I spent a lot of time on a scientific advisory board for the Air Force. And while I was on that board, I'm sitting together with some very high-ranking generals, a couple of which you see on the news today. They wasn't as highly ranked as they are now. But I'm sitting with these guys, and they're talking about the need for the workforce needs of the military and how it's a struggle. And I said, really? Because, the military was the thing that we did when you wasn't a good student, right? So, oh boy, we know who's going to Iraq, right? You look at a kid, he said, we know. He said 70% of the youth today, 18 to 24, don't qualify for the military. Why? The biggest issue is that they cannot pass the basic military entry exam. Was the ASVAB when I was going in, and I'm prior military myself, can't pass the basic test. Why is that an issue for you all today, and why am I bringing it up to you? Because that exam is a high-tech exam. The biggest issue is that they struggle with the technology-related entities on that exam. They struggle with the mathematics on that exam. There are some other reasons too: high school diploma, obesity, drugs, incarceration. But the biggest one is that they can't pass the test. And it's increasing at 1% a year. Are they employable? Are they headed to public assistance? If you can't get a military job, how then are you qualified and able to do all of the kinds of other jobs that the society needs to move forward? And we're not talking about a small number. We're talking about 70%. This is why I thank God for organizations like this, because this is your struggle. Every generation has a moment. Every generation has a challenge. Every generation has an issue. We can go back to the civil rights movement. We can go back to women's suffrage and the movement there. We can just keep going back and back and back, and every generation has a significant issue. If I move back to the early days of the formation of education in this country, that was a struggle. How do we get kids off the farm and into schools? This is our generation's struggle. It is at the heart of almost every single challenge that we face today, and I'm going to prove it to you. So We really face unprecedented challenges. I highlight them in a couple of areas here, level 1 and level 2. They stem from the fact that we got 7 billion people on the planet today. 7 billion people. Every 3 years or so, we add somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 million more. In the next 10 years, we'll add another billion. If I gave every one of those billion people a light bulb, one 40-watt light bulb, and told them they can only burn it for 4 hours a day, we need a 1 gigawatt power plant built every month for 2 years just to meet that demand. We're dealing with major changes to our climate. You ever heard of the concept of a biblical flood? When we talk about biblical floods, they're supposed to occur about once every 1,000 years. They're synonymous with rain on the order of 1 inch per hour over multiple days. We've had 10 in our country in the last 7 years. The problem is we hadn't had them in Southern California because down here at the bottom, that's our reservoir. We're still in a drought there. And then we have the issues with our infrastructure. About every other year, the American Society of Civil Engineers does a study of our bridges, our aqueducts, our levees, our dams, our roadways. They highlight the quality of those entities. And I will tell you that the country this year got a grade of a D+. Okay? That's the grade that the country received. They say our bridges and overpasses, about 30% of them are structurally deficient or functionally obsolete. So think about that on your way home. About 1 out of every 3 bridges and overpasses. And you just ask yourself, 1, 2, 3, can this be the one? What do you think happens to all that trash we create? You know it winds up somewhere, right? Our oceans are a barometer of the planet. These are real pictures. And look at that kid there. He's just as happy as can be. He's picked up some plastic and he's putting it on over his eyes. This is the challenge that we face, that we have to solve. We're also dealing with unprecedented change, and I use years of 50 million users to highlight that. It took radio 38, television 13, cell phone 7, internet 4, it took Facebook 2 years. How many have Facebook accounts? See by show of hands. It's interesting, the fastest growing group in Facebook are 35 to 54-year-olds. So all of the students now, they're actually getting off Facebook. And you see the speed of that change. But what people don't realize is that the rate of change is actually speeding up. So while it took the cell phone Facebook 2 years to get to 50 million users, it took Pokemon Go 3 weeks. Now, if you really want to get deep, how many people in here got Pokemon Go accounts? Yeah, see, I'm Team Valor. Yeah, somebody in here knows what I'm talking about. So what does this mean for me as an engineering dean? It means that more than half of the top 10 in-demand jobs in 2017 did not exist in 2006. This year, we will celebrate the 10th anniversary of the Apple iPhone, which is the entity that started the whole revolution, the whole smartphone revolution. How many of you have a smartphone in here? Let me ask the opposite question. Is there anybody in here who has a dumb phone? They still make dumb phones, and they have to for security reasons and other things. Just don't have any apps. You don't have to worry about anybody hacking you or anything. They're actually becoming popular now to people who don't want to get spoofed. But the point is that all of the technology associated with that, all of the app development didn't exist before 2007. Those jobs just were not here. Now you need all the technology to get the information to you. We got 3G and 4G, and now upcoming we got 5G. Well, 4G, that was a parking spot outside in the lot. Wi-Fi was a misspelled word. These changes, they happen so fast right? That because we're experiencing them, we oftentimes don't see how fast the relative change is coming. And technology is now so much so the change is happening that technology is becoming a real competitor. It's a competitor for jobs. A recent study here shows that the probability of computerization now looks like about 47% of our total employment in our society is at risk. So I used to tell this story about how I was amazed when I went into an Apple store and went to purchase my iPhone, and that there were no cash registers, right? They basically ring you up with a little handheld device that looks similar to a phone, right? You all remember that? Anybody? Well, so that's a wave of things to come, and you think, wow, well, it can't get any better than this. Just 2 weeks ago, I went in that same Apple store, and the guy was like, we don't need to ring you up. You take out your phone and ring up yourself. I kid you not. I opened up my app, scanned my item, and walked out the store. Here's the key. What happens to all of the jobs associated with the individuals who are doing that work? They become unemployed, and if they don't have the proper prerequisite skills for the job that's creating that opportunity, they become unemployable. That is also our reality. So you hear that 13 million Americans are unemployed, but people don't tell you that 3.8 million jobs in the country still remain unfilled. Those jobs are in the technology and fields almost without question. And then there's this. Roughly 70% of Americans are still living paycheck to paycheck with essentially zero savings. The number of people on food stamps has doubled since 2008. Half of the children born today will be on food stamps at some point in their life. And 49% of all Americans are receiving benefits from at least one government program. Okay. See. 1, 2, 1, 2. Is this not working? Okay. Is it on? Oh, okay. So, can I go there? They always say, don't get political in these talks. But can I go there for 1 second? Numbers 2 and 3 are slated to be reduced in the skinny budget. Somebody is going to have to be there to provide the backstop for opportunities for these individuals as the walls start to close in on them. I know of no better entity than the kinds of projects and programs that are going to come out of the individuals in this room. How do I say this? You are at the vanguard of the struggle. The army that is going to come in and solve this problem is the army that I'm looking at right here. You and all that you connect to. As I look around the country, there is no more comprehensive mechanism. There is no more comprehensive mechanism to go after and to attack many of the problems that I highlighted today than what's happening here in this room. And I've been in a lot of meetings. Lord, have mercy. Because you have the ability to bring all of the desperate entities, all of the spheres of excellence together to leverage one another and to focus on next generation solutions to problems. You are focused and set up to do that, unlike any other entity in the whole country. And that's why this is so profound. It may seem like a little thing now, but there's a reason why this thing is growing so fast. You're actually onto something. And I think it's larger and bigger than what you all believe. And, you know, it'll be interesting that we'll look up one day and Gerald Solomon will be, you know, the picture of the leader of the next revolution. Yeah, that's funny to a lot of folks, right? No, he's my comrade. Do this more. So what does the opportunity space actually look like? What's coming next? In 5 years, you'll no longer need IDs, money, store cards, credit cards, business cards, photos, mail order mailman, paper and hardback books, bills and notices. Actually, you will always have bills and notices. They'll just be electronic, but you're going to get them. Paper, steering wheels. Right now, it started about 6 months ago in Singapore. A company named Nutonomy started doing research of a 2 square mile radius in downtown Singapore where you can hail your own taxi. The taxi is autonomous, and the vehicles will take you from one place to another with no driver. Just you in the back of the car with no driver. I've recently reviewed the theses, of PhD theses, of the next generation technology that's going to propel that forward. Uber and Lyft now have similar programs ongoing in the US. You may have heard about them in your individual cities. We've had some crashes, no fatalities. But this is not just coming, this will be here. Every year, you may not notice it, but we take more and more away from the driver. Right now, you can go and buy, if you go and buy a Toyota Camry, a Toyota Corolla, and you're driving that Corolla, and you get too close to somebody moving too fast, the car will automatically stop. And that's a Corolla. We don't talk about the high-end stuff. It's the cheapest thing they make. The car is taking more and more away from you, right? And let's not think about what happens to the automotive industry as that happens. That's the wrong entity. Think about what happens to the insurance industry. It gets real deep now, doesn't it? Organ donors. At UCI alone, there are at least 5 different organs that we're building artificial replacements for. Pancreas, kidney, liver, heart, and we're literally building these entities from the ground up. You all know about classrooms. It went through a hype phase, now it's in a trough, but it is not going away. And I'm going to highlight to you what the real components of online learning that are going to survive and that we're going to actually engage and have to deal with. And then there's finally CRISPR-9 technology. And I don't know if you know what CRISPR-9 is, but what CRISPR-9 technology is that no more do you have to worry about choosing the sex of your baby. You can actually choose the features. So if you want a kid that's 6'5", runs a 4.5 40, has a wicked jump shot, and as smart as can be, you can just order them up. Yeah, that's really deep. But it's really real. Okay? Scientists are right now, we're still doing fruit flies and mosquitoes, but they're changing everything about those bugs. They can make them, you want them with 2 red eyes, they can do that. You want them with a red eye and a blue eye, they can do that. You want the next generation to be sterile and not able to produce, they can do that. That's happening right now. Technology also needs a corresponding connection to humanism, because we must also, while we ask ourselves the question, can I? Right? That's what the technology answers, right? Can I? There has to be a corresponding question, and that question is, should I? Or even a better one, how should I? How many of you remember this? Y'all remember this? Everybody tell me what game this is? Pong. I was a master at Pong. Actually, I'm 8. I'm playing against 0. But when I was playing Pong, I had no idea would come to this. This is FIFA 2016. I had no idea that my little Pong game would move to something like this. We have no idea what virtual and augmented reality has in store for us, but I've seen it. I've experienced the technology, and there's technology today, not on the market yet, but it's coming, where you put on a headset and you think you are somewhere else. You feel like you are somewhere else. You experience like you are somewhere else. So you're not going to just be looking at the game on your screen. You're actually going to feel like you're in the game. It's coming. And it's not going to be that long, only maybe a year or 2 before that technology hits our airwaves. Now here's the question for us, and here's where I get to the kind of the wrap up of my talk. Are we moving fast enough to keep up with all of these? Now, I know who I'm talking to. Before I tell you this answer, I'm just going to tell you that I'm the cat. We know that we're not moving at the pace of industry. You remember when manufacturing looked something like that? It was difficult, it was dirty, it was extraordinarily dangerous. But this is how modern manufacturing looks. In fact, there's an old joke that goes around, and it says the manufacturing plant of the future would have 2 things in it: robots, a man and a dog. The robots are there to do the work. The man is there to feed the dog. The dog is there to bite the man if he touches the robot. The people who tell us that we're not keeping up with industry is industry. I leave here today to go up to DC to meet with a group at STEM Connector, because what they're telling us as engineering deans, okay, who I now represent all of them. I'm the chair of the Engineering Deans Council, and that's all 300 and some odd engineering schools in the country. What industry is telling us is, even when you all are doing your jobs as planned, the best that you are producing is not good enough to solve today's problem. The noticeable issue is our pace. This is going to take a few minutes here, but a group of researchers did a study. They were actually testing brainwave measurements. They had developed a device that you can wear on your wrist, and they also put one on their brain to measure brain activity over a period of the day. They were doing long-term studies, and this was a new wearable device that they were working. Could you put something on your wrist that can determine brain activity, right? And so they published this paper in the IEEE journals of biomedical, one of the IEEE journals on biomedical devices. And we're looking at the data, and they highlight what's going on at different times of the day. Look at class. Look at the brain activity. Look at sleep. Look at lab, chores, social time. Look at class. No, I answered the question for you. We're not moving fast enough, and not everyone is included. This is bachelor degrees by ethnicity in the country, and we're seeing that Latino numbers now have just eclipsed, or a little bit over 10%, and African American numbers have now actually dropped. They're down to about 3% of the bachelor's in engineering degrees are going to African Americans. We can also look at this by gender. That's over multiple years. We would call that flat line, right? We somehow have to get the numbers of women and the numbers of underrepresented minorities, women should be above 40%. Most of the degrees in the country now actually go to women. Most of the college degrees in the country go to women, just not in engineering. This number is double, where it should be twice as high as what it is now. And how do we compete with China, with India, with some of the other countries in Asia, if we don't figure out a way to at least educate women in this country, in this field? So I go back again, who's leading the fight on this? Who's putting that together? What's the individuals in this room, right? We talk a lot about grand challenges, but I have been personally challenging the head of the National Academies of Engineering, because this is the grand challenge. All of this other stuff, make solar energy relevant, all of that stuff is good stuff. But this is your grand challenge. How do we educate those who aren't educated? So what do the solution spaces look like? Which way do we go? There are a host of them here. I'm going to go through these very quickly. This is the one that I think is most important. And this is what you all have that other entities don't have. A novel partnership, okay? It's sciences, it's education, it's engineering, non-governmental organizations working together with industry towards solving a problem. See, right now, we're in a scenario at the top where everybody is pulling their own separate ways, and sometimes in the same city, in the same town, even, you have two people working on the same problem, not working together. And if they leverage the resources together, they would not only solve the problem, but have double or triple the bandwidth to go out and solve the next one. That has to be repaired. We got a number of ecosystems here. How many of you are actively involved with your major Research One university? These are the 37 STEM communities. So I actually asked this question of the engineering deans. I had them all in a room, just like this one here. And I talked specifically about this STEM learning ecosystem. And I asked them, how many of you, I put the map up, this map. I said, if there's a dot in your state, you tell me if you're connected to that STEM learning ecosystem. What percentage of those deans do you think raised their hands? No, we had about 4 or 5 of them out of the 37. But look, here's the space. This is your help. If a faculty member at any of these institutions wants an NSF grant, they have as a requirement, they are required to do what is called broader impacts. That means they have to reach out to the community and work on a problem, a substantive problem in their area of engineering related to helping that community in the outcome. The government pays them in the grant to do this. What happens now is that I got to, and we have to, make sure we're connecting with all these institutions to get them engaged with what you do, because you have a lot of projects. On Friday, I'm talking to this group. This is STEM Connector. Matter of fact, I ran out of room. I couldn't get the rest of the companies there. All of these companies have signed on to create the STEM graduate of the future. Who should they be connected with? Wait, let me ask this question a different way. If you knew that they had some money and they were looking, how many of you would raise your hand then to be engaged with them? And so I'm going to talk to them about connecting with this group. This is the educational paradigm when we talk about disrupting the educational outcomes. On the left, there are the things that are relatively common, from instructional online videos, moving to peer-to-peer academic support, and then you move all the way to the right, and that's the direction we're going. These are the entities that will survive this whole online boom and bust. Experiential learning on entry, When I say on entry, it means as soon as they walk into school, they're given open-ended, project-based learning where they're working in teams. That shouldn't just be at the university level. That's going to have to be at the high school and middle school level as well. And that's moving, and they're moving all the way into automated assessment. Why? Because as you're doing more of those experiential hands-on projects that take more time, you're going to need something on the other end to help alleviate some of that time. And the automated assessment and some of these other tools will actually help reduce that in time. We also want to create new inventors. Our kids are growing up what we call digital natives, right? They're growing up with it. They're see the little baby with a cell phone in the womb. That's many of the individuals and the students that we're educating, right? Many of us are in this digital immigrants category, right? But some of us are digital hostages. See, I know why some of you didn't download the app. I know why you didn't download the app. You don't have to play with me. I've been here. So white kids are ideal inventors. The youngest ones of them are creative, motivated by challenges, not afraid of failure, resilient, and idealistic. That's what the very young of them are. And look, they are having impact. I don't even want to get into the story of Jack and Draco or William, Kevin Doe. We all know that our youth, there's enough information and access to information out there that if they're given the proper encouragement, they can go out and do great things. And it's not just the boys, it's also the girls. Let me ask you this question. What do all these great companies have in common? All of these great companies have one thing in common. The founders are all in their teens or 20s. It is imperative that we get at these kids and we start working with them. And these companies aren't germane to any one part of the country. They may wind up in California, but they spring up all over the place. They actually just moved to California to get money. But this is happening all over the country. It's actually happening right now. The next great tech company is being developed right now by some kid in a garage somewhere. So when I look at all of this, I'm not really as concerned, right? We got big challenges in front of us. We got momentous issues that we're dealing with. When I look back on the last century, this were the greatest achievements, from electrification to the automobile, to nuclear technologies, health technologies. And we were able to do this in spite of the fact that in 1900, the US population was 76 million and China's was 467 million. That's 6 times larger than us. Right now, they're only 4 times bigger than us. So I don't get into the numbers, right? And you say, well, that was then. Can we still do this today? And I just look at what's happening. I just look at the great companies that are being developed, and they still seem to emanate from this country. They're all here. Really great companies, and we're still rising to the occasion. It's always the second groups of laughter that gets me, because they like, oh, I got it. So I'll stop there. Thank you all for the opportunity for talking with you today.